Manage virtual machine clones and templates. Okay, well, I don't know, that last nugget was fairly exciting, and I know it went a little long, but the whole notion of clustering and bringing together all those ESX hosts into a single unified thing that's now highly available and highly load balanced, and I don't know, it just seems particularly exciting, and in a lot of ways, and I think for a lot of ESX administrators, that whole clustering topic is for many kind of one of the most exciting pieces of really getting to work with vSphere. You can argue at this point, so by now, okay, however many nuggets we are into this series, we've pretty much completed most of the core infrastructure pieces of putting together your vCenter environment. Right? You've got the networking done, you've got the storage done, you've put all the machines together in a clustered arrangement, and so the foundations of what you need to be successful with vSphere are now operational. We've built virtual machines now, and we can see those virtual machines moving around across that cluster. And so from this point on, a lot of the topics are, they're add-on, right? They're additional ways to optimize things, additional ways to automate things, additional ways to keep things patched and correctly configured, and all the extra stuff that's required for operational type things. And that's where we're starting today here with this whole notion of clones and templates. Now, this will not be the same 45-minute long nugget that the last one was, but it does introduce some really interesting topics in terms of how you can enjoy some of the copy and paste benefits of virtual machines so that you can very rapidly deploy new VMs whenever you need to. Now, cloning is really kind of a fancy name for copying and pasting the VNDK file for a virtual machine. There's more to it. There are more steps involved. There are more things you're going to do, but really what you're doing is making a copy and a paste of a VM file. Now, a template is really nothing more than a virtual machine's file, right, that has been specially identified that it's not actually for execution. In other words, you don't actually run a template. The template's there so that you can clone from that template to create a functioning virtual machine, but it's still a VMDK file at its core. So in this nugget, we're going to spend some time talking about how you might use those clones and templates. And in this second bullet down here, the appropriate deployment methodology for a VM application. There are going to be a lot of different ways in which you can deploy VMs, either creating them from scratch or deploying them from clones and templates. I hope at the conclusion of this nugget you'll kind of get a feel for when you might want to do that. Once we get into the click-by-click part, we're going to spend time just looking at how you would clone an existing virtual machine and how you would create a template and ultimately deploy a virtual machine from a template. There is this really nifty tool called the Customization Specification Manager that takes what would otherwise be just a regular copy-paste and actually allows you to apply some sort of sysprep-like things to virtual machines once you deploy them from a template. And then lastly, we're going to go through the process of deploying OVF templates, which are a much more packaged way of transferring a virtual machine from one person to another. And specifically, we'll actually deploy the vCenter appliance as an OVF template because you kind of need to understand what the vCenter appliance is. You can think of it as an appliance mechanism, a Linux-based appliance mechanism for doing the same sorts of things we're doing here with our vCenter server. Now, before we get there, however, this top bullet is what I want to spend just a minute on because this is one of those things where you need to know it because you're running a vCenter environment, but more importantly, you kind of need to know what these configuration maximums are for the exam. This is a document, right? VMware pushes this document out for, I think, every version of vSphere that I've worked with. And what it is it's this giant configuration maximums document that talks about for virtual machines and the EXXI host and also for vCenter server and the extensions for vCenter server, what are the maximums, the resources that you can apply to certain elements in that whole environment. Here are the virtual machine maximums, for example, the amount of RAM per virtual machine, the swap file size, the number of SCSI targets, and the virtual disk size, and just all sorts of just fun little facts that if you're taking the exam, well, you should really know what these are. I mean, these are common. If you're just running a vCenter environment, well, you should be genuinely familiar with what these are because you don't want to end up coming up against many of these maximums. Now, all these maximums are interesting, but really what you're probably more interested in is how do you actually apply this whole virtual machine clones and templates concept to what you'll see inside of the vSphere client. So here we go. This is that same vSphere environment that we've been working with thus far. 3 hosts at this point, 4